said we are live here on Zoom. This speaks another set of mode, but I believe
Kurt looks like he's doing a podcast.
because otherwise it'll put you there and we'll get the blocks.
Oh, so
I think my hair's thin,
Yeah, we're all set.
I'm beyond that, so.
slightly thin.
Cool.
Right, and we're live.
We are live and we are streaming.
Hey, Dylan.
Reg and Kurt, do you have any issues hearing us?
No, I can hear you just fine.
Okay,
I'm good on this end.
good.
Can I take my mask off from 6 feet away?
Well, I was wondering the same, but I think it's a building
I
Yeah.
think the
regulation.
building requires.
Yeah, just mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was hoping the same, but we are expecting Loretta to join us. She, however, is not here yet. We have a very light agenda, as everyone knows. Mr. Lattenville is back well, I think the first thing we need to do is just lay out where we're at as far as your right to a full and complete board, as to whether or not you would like to have your proposal be heard and voted on tonight. You are certainly afforded a 5 voting member board to have the ability to vote on your request. At best tonight, we are going to have 4 people. Jim is not available, our chairman. But we do have Loretta has joined us, so we have.
Hi, Loretta.
I think she's muted, but
Yeah, I think she's muted as well.
Loretta, we believe you are muted at this point. You good with that? Just 1 minute.
Fixed it.
There we go.
Hi, Loretta.
Hi.
So that will be a question as to whether or not you want to proceed to a vote.
So there's 4?
There are 4. You would still be required to have the 3 votes in the affirmative to receive your request.
Will there be enough information provided to the 4 people today in order to warrant 4-person meeting?
There will be, and they'll have an opportunity to correspond with you through the question and
We're
answer.
simply lacking 1 person.
We are lacking 1 person. When you initially made your presentation, Derek Rosenbaum was a member of the
Yep.
board. He has since resigned to dedicate himself to the school board. You do have some exhibits that are new to the board that will solicit the opinions of the Zoom attendees.
Mhm.
And we can see if they want further information. This is the 3-inch clap vinyl. I believe it's the same as what you
That's
have.
triple free.
Yeah. So that'll be a decision that it will be on the record, whatever choice that you make, if you want to make presentation and then and bring everyone up to speed. Has every member present that will be voting tonight been present for all presentations on this, where we actually had a presentation?
I have, Rick.
Yeah, I have been.
You have not, Kurt?
No, I have, yes.
You have, okay. Loretta?
I honestly do not. How many presentations have there been?
2 prior,
3 in total.
2 prior.
January, August, July, August, no.
Yeah, July,
This is-
August, and this is the 3rd.
Okay, I may have missed the first one. I don't remember. Someone would have to, I mean, I honestly don't remember.
Loretta has missed one.
Yeah, I thought I had.
Okay. So we would want Loretta to have all the information. Unfortunately, we don't have minutes.
We have minutes.
We do have minutes that she can review?
Yeah.
Okay. Loretta, are you good with that? If Shalice shares the minutes of the meetings that involve Mr. Lattenville's application? That you can.
Yeah, I mean, I was present for one. I think I was probably present for the second one. And I mean, I would imagine that we went over all the same material that was included in the first one. And then there was more information in the second one. Is that correct, Shalice?
Yes.
Yeah,
The point being is, as long as you've been given adequate information where you believe you can make an informed vote is the important.
yes, because I watched the YouTube of the meeting that I missed.
Perfect. Okay.
So yes, I wasn't there in person. I watched that later. And then the next meeting I was present at, and we had all the material ahead of time, and I reviewed all the material ahead of time, and we discussed it during the meeting.
Thank you. So being that we are all familiar with the application as it's been presented to date, I'll give you an opportunity if you,
We're all here.
okay. These new materials, is there anything special, or do you want to wait until it's official meeting time to discuss it? Okay, I think it should be placed on the record so that the record is clear.
Although, Rick, can I just ask, is this new material, the material that SHPA has already delivered an opinion on?
Well,
They did not receive a physical copy of those.
SHPO, Shalice just mentioned, SHPO has not seen the physical material that we're going to be discussing. One of the, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but this is an illustration of the crete board. It's a concrete fiber.
Right.
It's a shiplap planking, and Mr. Lattenville was asked to share with us a 3-inch clapboard simulated vinyl that is more representative of the material that's on the building today. I can try to put this closer to the camera where you can see the two materials if you wish, or if you're familiar with the materials, we don't have to. The description on the crete board is that I would estimate this to be about 3/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch in thickness. It's a consistent thickness on the side, so any overlap on it would leave a void impression underneath.
It's listed under the James Hardy.
Yes.
James Hardy specifications that I submitted to the application.
Yes. Yeah, the material data sheet had been submitted. It's in It's in one of our packets of information, whether it had been the
August.
first, second, you
August.
believe August?
I think so.
August packet.
One for
Rick, question.
Yes, sir.
Is the vinyl material the same sample that we saw in our earlier meeting? When we were discussing the project?
I'm gonna say it is, yes.
Okay, thank you.
The only difference is the first one that we saw was a 4-inch simulation. This is a 3-inch simulation. And this may have been presented previously.
It was presented, it was presented along with the 2-inch double 4, as you said, it's 4 inches to the weather. This one simulates exactly what's on there now, 3 inches to the weather, so it'll match.
Yeah.
And the other one I didn't bother bringing because you didn't like it at the time.
Yeah,
And that is the
I do
material
have
with,
some correction.
that is the material with the simulated grain?
they both have simulated grain, yes.
The reverse of the cement has flat base.
I'm sorry?
I think the reverse of the cement has flat base. One side is,
This is simulated grain.
yep, the reverse side, is it flat?
No,
Okay,
it's
thank you,
unfinished.
thank you. I asked because there was a SHPO comment stating that the reverse is sometimes flat.
I do remember one of the questions, and I remember it basically because I had asked it. What would the corners look like if we use the PVC material versus trying to manipulate the channeling and the edging? Is by chance, do you have a simulation of that?
Yeah, the photos were submitted.
Which one? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, the
Of the
photos are in the
PVC?
packets and they're in, of the edges.
Yes.
The corner, inside corners, outside corners.
The photos are in the
Okay.
packets and they're also in the PowerPoint presentation.
Perfect. Honestly, had not had the opportunity to go through anything.
Everything you requested was
Yeah.
submitted.
Yeah. So we'll go through each of the materials that were submitted with explanation. And
Rick, I've just got one question, again, regarding is it SHPO or SHPA? I always get it,
SHPO.
SHPO, thank you. Regarding the letter from SHPO, is that letter addressing the materials that that letter references? Are those the same as the materials that have been submitted to you today, Rick?
I am going to try to find in my packet the letter that you referenced.
That won't be in the packet. Sorry, that came in while I was out on vacation. So
Okay.
When did we receive that, Shalice?
the SHPO letter was sent out to you guys on December 23rd.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
received on the 22nd.
Ethan, did you send that out?
I sent it out.
Shalice sent it
Did
out.
you? Okay, I'm trying to find it.
Is that information that's shared with the applicant?
Yes,
Thank you.
And do you have a copy available that we can just read off it?
we also have it in the PowerPoint as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh, I just found it. Yep, I've got it. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to understand before we get started, whether or not the materials that you're talking about, Rick, the cement and the vinyl, if those are the same materials that the SHPO letter is referring to, or if this is a different vinyl or a different cement product.
Loretta, it's the same, all of the paper materials are the same materials that were sent to SHPO. The only The only material that is in front of Rick right now that is different is the physical examples of the vinyl siding and the cement siding. The actual physical pieces. The descriptions and all the paper materials that you guys have before you were also sent to SHPO.
Okay, but at the end of the day, what SHPO evaluated was in fact what Rick has in front of him right now.
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that they weren't, that hadn't been changed.
No.
Good,
If I
thank you.
understand what you just said though, Shalice, just to make certain I really do understand. SHPO was given a verbal description or a written description, if you will, not a physical sample. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
They were
Thank
given.
The way to submit to
Actually,
SHPO is only digitally through their Chris online system. There's not a way to submit a physical sample to them.
They were given the product from the manufacturer.
Yes.
Okay, I think without being on record, I don't know if you have any more questions for this portion, or if you want to save your remaining questions for the meeting. At any time during the meeting, if you wish to not go to vote right up to that point, you'll have the opportunity to. Yeah, and all information to date will be part of the permanent record, including what's discussed today and in all presentations today. I think staff has a few things to bring us up to speed with. One of them is candidates for planning board membership. So I'll let Ethan.
Yep, so as we discussed the last meeting, we have since advertised for the 2 vacant positions on the planning board. And we have received, I believe it's 4 to 5 responses, 6 responses. So we do have a variety of people with diverse backgrounds of professional and personal experiences that they believe that they bring value to this board. Due to the holidays, we haven't been able to bring anyone for an interview to really discuss, the role in a little bit more detail and find out if they're fully interested. At that point, so after New Year's, we'll whittle down that list and bring in some people to discuss. And then I know as a board, we discussed not having the individual applications being vetted through the board as a whole. So the staff will review and make a recommendation to the council for approval. But the good news is we have several members of the community who are interested in participating, and it gets a chance to get our board back to full strength.
Any questions regarding the candidate conversation? Okay. The other subject I'd like to ask, we requested Dean to give us his opinion on a couple of questions. Have we received a response at this point?
We have not yet received a response.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have subject matter they want to bring up or discuss? Staff?
I don't know. If you put something up on the board, how can most of the virtually see it?
On their computer screen.
It'll come up in the.
They take it over.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole presentation will be.
For staff comments, I know Kurt, you brought up the comp plan where that's at. Fortunately, due to staff being out various times this month, it's kind of been stalled, but we're hoping to move that forward in January. And then the other news is this will be my last planning board meeting. I am moving out of state at the end of this month. Already have moved by the end of this month. So I've appreciated my brief stint with you all working to make Plattsburgh a better place, both as this position and as my unofficial position before as a project coordinator, and my time interacting with each and all of you. So I appreciate your time, and I wish you all the best success going forward. So
Ethan, on behalf-
Congratulations, Ethan.
thank you.
On behalf of myself and the absent planning board members, I'll speak briefly on behalf of the present planning board members. You've brought great value to your position and to this board, and for a young man, you have been very influential in your presentations. The presentations were complete, they were honest, and I respect your judgment and character in everything that you've done for us. So
I appreciate that.
I say thank you.
Have fun up in Portland, Ethan.
Thank you.
It is gorgeous up there.
Yes.
Another person going forward,
Yeah.
we're losing the world.
Yeah, Maine's becoming a real destination. I know so many people who are moving up there.
It is pretty as they say.
I will always have a special place for Plattsburgh in my heart. But Portland, there's definitely it is from the few times I visited, the brief time I've been there this month. It is very pretty, and I'm excited to see what else it has to offer. So
Very nice.
thank you.
Best of luck.
Good luck, Ethan. Thanks for being so adaptable and picking up so many balls before they drop and keeping everything going. You've done a lot of work for the city for the last couple of years. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And you guys, I know my position here at the city, the planner position's kind of been a revolving door the last 3.5 years. And, I think the city's going to be advertising hopefully soon for my replacement. But in the meantime, you have Shalise, who's been the constant through all of this.
Yeah.
And you're in very capable hands, and she will have Barb. I think she's right off camera helping as well. So.
Yeah, you guys can't see her here. She's hiding off camera, but Barb is joining us now as the secretary. So.
Hello, everybody. Meet you soon.
And then as a staff, that's all I think I have to say. And you have to say unless there's anything else.
If I could just say one thing, Ethan, it has been a great pleasure and honor working with you these past 3.5 years or so. And I'm truly going to miss you. Portland is great. Gaining a wonderful human being.
I appreciate it. You just gotta wait for the official meeting to say that, so it's on the record, so you can have that in a minute.
That was the dress rehearsal.
Okay. Sorry to go from that beautiful moment to this one, but I do want to add one thing. I did speak with Chairman Abdello last night. He did want to make sure that the applicant for the item on the agenda tonight was aware of the resubmission restrictions. So if his application is voted down tonight without a full board, you would have to wait a year before applying again, or must submit a substantially different application. There's also some language about if you withdraw now that the public hearing has been posted, unless the board requires, requests some additional information from you to make it incomplete again, you would not be able to reapply for 90 days.
And tabling bypasses.
I honestly don't know, and we don't have legal advice right now. So I'm sorry.
Can you ask your question again? Tabling bypasses
All of that. If the item is tabled for a vote and postponed for future information for next month, then that doesn't apply.
That's correct.
Yes.
It's when the board votes
Thereafter.
thereafter, that you have to wait a period if it's not, if the application's not approved. And again, we're not attorneys, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
You were in the real-
I mean, I can read the section that
No,
goes
please
over it.
don't.
No, don't, okay.
No, please. Grass goes over.
Okay,
Well, we have 2 minutes left.
That's it.
We actually have a tabled item, and that's 144 US Oval that have we heard anything?
we have not received any response from them whatsoever. I believe 2 meetings ago that we actually met, 'cause I think there was a month that we skipped. You guys had indicated if they did not come at the next month, that you guys would remove it from the table and vote on it. We did not do that at that next meeting, so it's still on the table today. But we have not received any communication from that applicant. We have reached out several times electronically and via phone, and we have not received any response.
Well, we can discuss how we're gonna handle that. These final seconds, I guess. Did you need to live stream or? you good
It's live
with all
streaming.
that?
Yep, so it'll be the same, so we're good. Once it's the
I'll just-
time to do the pledge of allegiance and roll call, and then
Okay,
the show goes on.
well, let's business to order. Could everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance? Mr. Bill, would you like to lead us, please?
What am I doing?
Pledge of allegiance?
Oh my God. It's been 100 years. All right. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Tonight is the planning board meeting of Tuesday, December 28th. Staff, could you ask for a roll call, please?
Chairman Abdullah is absent. Rick Perry,
Present.
Reg Carter,
Here,
Kurt Burbich,
Yes, here.
Loretta Rietzema,
Here,
Okay, also present, Ethan Vincent, city planner, Shalice Margaret, the planning assistant, and I don't believe I know Barb's last name.
Barbara Brister, BRIS.
Brister, who will be the secretary to the board. Welcome.
Thank you.
So the first meeting item on the agenda is 144 US Oval. It's a historic site review that has previously been tabled. Staff, can you bring us up to date as to where we're at with this?
Yep, so I think Shalice mentioned it very well, that the applicant had given us all the information we needed. They failed to participate in the meetings. It was ultimately tabled several times since then. We have not heard back. But essentially for 144 US Oval, it's a request to replace all existing vinyl windows and hardwood trim with replacement vinyl windows and hardwood trim at 144 US Oval. This is in a zoned R2, and it's in the registered historic district, the US Oval Historic District. Apologize for that. Ultimately, we have the Part 1 EAF attached. There has been no past historic site review applications. I will say, this property is very similar to one that the board had already approved about in 2019, 148 US Ave, which is essentially, it was the same request, replacing like with like. So that just going through this a little quick. So if anyone on the board wants me to stop, that was just the initial Chris form. A picture of the property. Another picture. An example of what the applicant was proposing or is still proposing. Still these windows, which again, once again, the current windows are vinyl. In the programmatic agreement for the Air Force Base, excuse my pronunciation, there's a categorical exclusion list, essentially things that if they can't if they fit into this threshold, it's essentially a like for like in this case, and it's fine. It doesn't need SHPO approval, and it's good to go. In this case, the example highlighted is that windows repair and a replacement of in-kind, where in-kind is understood to mean new windows that duplicate the material, dimensions, design, detailing, and operation of the historic windows, as well as, and it described a little bit more. So repairing, scraping, repainting existing in-kind or similar like replacement of window sash, glass, or hardware, including jam tracks, and in-kind similar like replacement of damaged or non-operable transoms. We did refer this to SHPO. Oh, sorry. We did refer this project to SHPO. SHPO determined the proposed project would have a no adverse effect to the historic and cultural resources. They noted that the vinyl replacement was minimally acceptable in this case because it's replacing existing vinyl. And that for SHPO, for staff review, I think that's all we have, except that we wish the board to consider as a condition of approval that all arch shop window openings be replaced with arch shop windows, and that any arches shall not be filled with wood or an alternative. Essentially just making sure the window stays as it is currently. Shalise, if I'm missing anything, this is a chance to hop in, but essentially that's where we're at with this. Unfortunately, there's no individual representing this application here tonight. And so it's up to the board to decide what to do with this.
Okay.
The one thing I would add is that it is a tabled item, so if the board chooses to discuss it, there does need to be a motion first to remove it from the table.
Okay. Excuse me, are there any questions with respect to this application? Does everyone feel comfortable that they have sufficient knowledge of the application to bring it to vote?
Yes.
Okay. With there being no questions, we have to open the public hearing, correct?
You have to make a motion to remove it from the table first.
Okay. We have a motion to remove it from the table.
I'll make a motion to remove that from the table.
Second that.
Does it require a vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's me. Rick Perry,
Yes.
Reg Carter,
Yes,
Kurt Burbidge,
Yes.
Loretta Rietzema.
Yes,
We have to have a public hearing on the application. Is there anyone from the public? Do we have anyone online that might?
We do not have anyone online.
There being no one from the public, either in person or online or by phone, that has any questions, I would like to close the public hearing. And guess we can entertain a motion as to how to treat the application.
I'll make a motion. I don't have the number of this application in front of me.
2021-15.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we reject the proposal on the grounds that the applicant has been unresponsive to multiple attempts for communication and hasn't come back before the board with a second time for approval.
So the motion on the floor by Kurt is to defeat the request by the applicant. We have a roll call, please.
We need a second.
Yeah.
Oh, we need
I'll
a
second the motion.
Roll call, Reg Carter,
Yes.
Kurt Gervich,
Yes.
Loretta Rietsma,
Yes.
Rick Perry.
Yes.
Motion carried.
The motion was to reject the application. The application failed to seek approval and it's declined.
Next item on tonight's agenda. Is item 2021-13, 127 Court Street Historic Site Review. This has previously been tabled. So the request is to apply vinyl siding to a historic building in the Court Street Historic District located at 127 Court Street. Zone RH, tax map parcel ID number 207.18-5-16. The applicant is Hillsack Properties LLC. And we do have a representative for the application in front of us. The slide shows the location in the southwest corner of Court and Wells Street, highlighted in yellow. Once again, with any board member wants me to stop, go over any information or go back, just let me know.
I have a question, a procedural question. Do we have to formally reintroduce this application, given it's been tabled?
Before the board is able to discuss it, it would have to be removed from the table, so it does require a motion.
Okay, yeah.
Then we'll entertain a motion to remove the, excuse me, the application from the table.
I'll make that motion, Rick.
I'll second.
Roll call. Kurt Gervich,
Yes.
Loretta Rietsma,
Yes.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Reg Carter.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Hop right back in. So map showing the location of the property. Showing that it's in the RH zoning district and that it's in the Court Street Historic District. So going back from the June submission for the July board meeting, there's images of the property provided by the applicant, examples of concurrent conditions, examples of damage or affected areas, documentation of preservation attempts, including the various efforts since 1990. Some sample quotes for that work. Example of the material at that time. The original SHPO response was, we noted that the 127 Court Street is listed in the state and national registers of historic places as a contributing resource to the Court Street Historic District. And that based on the review, the office recommends against the installation of vinyl siding. So ultimately, they determined that installation of vinyl siding would not be appropriate treatment for this application due to some concerns about the impact of the siding on the original material. That's just a copy of the original, the first letter. The board decision in June wanted to see a little bit more documentation after discussion with the applicant, showing the sides, showing the siding on the property and other images and information. The applicant responded well, showing that the locations of historical or architectural significant features such as highlighted would not be impacted by the installation of the new siding. Another image, once again, what's highlighted is what is said to these features said to be preserved. Example of the siding, I believe that's the 4-inch, and that is now moved to 3-inch. SHPO's second response back after receiving that information from the applicant was covering the entire building does not meet preservation standards that and suggested potential fiber siding as an alternative siding material that is generally more acceptable. So in this case, alternative siding materials may be more acceptable in specific areas of the building where the issue is occurring. With any substitute, siding material should have a smooth and not a fake grain appearance. That's just a copy of that second letter from SHPO. Board decision was to get some more information from the applicant regarding the difference between the fiber cement installation and the originally proposed vinyl installation. The applicant provided additional information and we submitted that back to SHPO. So the applicant responded to the questions, showed some more pictures based on those conversations of how some of that J-channel coupling could work with having a less impact on the features. 1 second. A cost comparison of the fiber cement board, showing the cost between vinyl versus wood versus cement board. Cost comparison of vinyl, cost comparison of wood. Did mention the applicant did highlight some potential concerns of.
It came out red.
It might be that.
I think it's the highlighting from the PDF.
Yeah, it's.
They have it in their.
They have
packets.
a readable version in their packets. Essentially, the main concern was if the fiber cement board was impacted, as the Hardy board, the James Hardy product describes as it's in its normal state, there's no hazardous concerns. However, if there was cutting, rubbing, or anything like that, any particular dust that was created during the installation, so they have recommendations on how to address that, such as masks and other precautions if cutting of any material is required. So those were some items brought up by the applicant.
These are highlighted in red on the PowerPoint, but your packets don't have the highlighting. I just want to make sure. I think that the applicant might have some concern that you're not able to read that. So if you guys could just confirm that you're able to see that in your packets. If not,
Yeah, I was able to see it in my packet, Shelley, so I was able to read all of this.
Yeah, it's very clear.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Was as well.
I think it's kind of the lighting in here.
Yeah, the lighting with that screen, it's never, but regardless, yeah, we want to, that's a good call, Shalice, to make sure that we're on the same footing. So still some of the James Hardy, some of those concerns for the different materials. The original Chris form that was for SHPO describing the features of the property. SHPO's third and final response that was received last week on the 22nd, and sent to the board on the 23rd, was that the use of the final siding is generally not appropriate replacement siding material for historic wood siding. That alternative siding materials may be acceptable for areas of the building where the issue is occurring, and that any substitute siding material should have a smooth and a non-faux grain appearance. And that any decorative siding with historic window and door trim and other character defining elements should be retained, which I think the applicant has addressed previously in those images. And that's just a copy of the letter that has been sent to the board. And the city's code for historic site review, the zoning code describes that in a historic site permit, the planning board shall consider the compatibility of the proposed action in light of the guidelines and standards that may be established from time to time by the Secretary of the United States Department of the Interior. Things such as, these are some of the historic review standards referenced in our code, section 360-32. About reasonable efforts, distinguish original qualities or character of building and structures should not be destroyed. Try to avoid altering historic materials. Other distinctive stylistic features of example of skilled craftsmanship which characterize buildings should be treated with sensitivity. The interior architecture features should be repaired rather than replaced whenever possible. It's kind of a, I don't want to read all of this, but essentially just some of the code and some of the standards. If any of the board wants to look at anything in more depth, just let us know. I think staff review shows that, based on those guidelines, rehabilitation is the proper standard to place, which acknowledges the need to repair, alter, add to the historic property to meet the continuing and changing uses while retaining the property's historic character. Trying to avoid removing historic materials when possible and protecting those distinguished features. Essentially what SHPO has said. Replacing or repairing rather than replacing when possible. There was one public comment that was once again due to staff in and out. It was sent to Jim and myself, and Shalice had forwarded it earlier today. I can, due to the timeline, I can read it. And this is from a member of the public, Marissa Gilbert, saying Jim and board, for reference, another property also turned down for siting in the past was 2 doors away heading east, 121 Court Street, apartment building owned by Steve and Patty Fuller. Also wanted to do siting. We turned it down. As Chris notes, this is a significant contribution to the streetscape. A siting is not appropriate here. And that's the only public comment that we've received written or in any other format for this. And that's the end of what we have. And I will be able to go back to any slides that the applicant or the board wants, but at this point, Rick,
can you go back to the slide that identifies the contributing features of the building?
yes. So
The
Shalice,
terminology may not be correct, but I just want to be clear.
do you know if the Chris one was in their packet? That would make it more readable for
It
them.
was in an early packet. It's not in the current packet. The
Not
current
there?
packet is.
All right,
only-
but yeah,
Yeah,
just look at this, yeah.
yeah, number 20, I think is,
Yeah,
I can't. see
owned in
that.
1916 by J.H. Studholme. I can't read that part. Clothier. Studholme, thank you. Clothier and Hatter, established 1887. 87 Margaret, whose name first appears at this address in 1900. He was a native of Augsburg and came to Plattsburgh in 1886, I think that says.
Yeah.
As an imposing example of the Victorian residential style and with period integrity, this house makes a significant contribution to the streetscape. Interesting period details.
Nothing in here identifies any specific character of the building that is a contributing factor, just the building in general.
It says the house is a significant contribution. I think there's another part of the form and I can't find it right now.
18, so yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it's
number 18,
47.
sorry.
So it's the 2.5 story. So the other notable feat in this category on the building structure inventory form was labeled other notable features of building and site, including interior features if known. Describes a 2.5 story, 3-bay house with cross gable roofs. Pedimented ends, excuse my pronunciation on any of this, as well as pedimented projection with recessed porch. And I have issues with my R, but tripartite. Okay, we're gonna go with these are entry on the 3rd story, octagonal, that's wrong, tower with a tent roof, bracketed cornice, leaded, multiple pane, and 1-by-1 windows, classical porches with Doric columns, double glazed and paneled doors. So, I'm done butchering words now.
If you want.
And there was a presentation submitted of features that Mr. Latvo is not going to deface, but some of them may be in need of repair. Maybe if in your presentation, if you could, that one.
Yeah, so there's this
If you
one.
can just give us an idea as to how you intend to treat these areas, I think that would be of value. Please.
How do I sit? This way, that way?
If you want to aim towards the screen so you can see the most amount of part. That's.
Stuff I just stand.
Yeah.
That pretty much sums it up right there. That is what the state was talking about. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to keep. Give it a little bit.
Yeah, so it's a center button. And then if you want to hit the left or right.
Everything pink, pardon the colors, I did it myself. How do I go?
And
There
then,
it is.
yeah.
Okay. Page, this is sweet, it's all limitation. It's talking about dental work up here. You can see it through here. You can see the cornice work over here. Tripartite is this wall right through here, and on the above area is the tri-gable roof that's hipped in here. This area is the area of trouble, which is causing this to continually rot. This is the 3rd time since 1988 when I bought it. This has been rotted out and replaced 5 years ago because it happened again before. If see this area, those I replaced 10 years ago because the original ones rotted out. I put them back exactly the way that they were. Here at Casablanca, who built Freedom Heights doors and did the brickwork as a mason. He put them back exactly the same, which is,
Mr. Latin,
yes, ma'am.
sorry to interrupt. They won't be able to see what you're pointing, what your laser is pointing at, so you might want to describe that. That's the railings you're referring to.
I can't see that.
Yeah, unfortunately,
cannot
they
see
can only
that.
see what's on the digital screen.
Only Rick and us can see that. They won't be able to see the laser.
How about if I point?
The
I
way the
don't
camera's
think they'd
angled,
see
we
that.
can't really see.
Yeah, we can't see that, no.
Okay.
The audio's a little scratchy too.
Yeah, if you could stay closer to that we described so they can,
Oh, this?
yeah, so that's a.
Okay, how's that? I'm sorry. This is my first. Never done one of these before. Everything that's pink stays. That's the meat and potatoes that the state was talking about. The area. Same thing here. None of that's changing. If you look to the extreme left corner, the fascia board above the lattice work through the pink was replaced because the bottom left area had rotted. We replaced that. We repaired the roof that's over that large pink area where the 3 windows are. The outcropping, which is the trim work, also will stay. Everything above there in the bay window stays. Everything in pink, which is, excuse me, stays. The only thing I want to change is the white, which keeps rotting. Now, way on the top of that picture, you see where the gable end is and around those 3 windows. That's the escape and the porch for the upstairs apartment. That was repaired 6 years ago. That area way up, the area where you see kind of a mess, I'm sorry, I didn't do a good job. But where those 3 windows are in the top and around that top area, the window on the left, right below the gable roof. We salvaged some of it, but you can see where we did it a number of years ago. It's rotting below that window on the middle floor of the bay window. Way down at the bottom, it's rotting again. And the doorway, the central doorway off the stairway, coming, follow the stairs, go up. We've replaced the stairs twice. Going in, the door is original. We've done that again. We've done the inside hardwood floors twice since. And then we've replaced the siding, the wood siding around that window on the left, on the porch. But that corner takes a beating, as you can see right above the window, or below the window, above the roof. As well as up above, just directly above that on the gable of the 3rd window. It's simply taking a beating. It's not going to hold up. We'll get 5 years out of it. We'll be back again doing it. Did I go the right way with this? It's pretty. There's no question it's pretty. We've had the discussion prior to in our last meeting when all members were here that we like this building. I like to preserve buildings. I'm not going to hack it, whack it, or do anything to disturb it. I want to keep it the way it is, but I want to improve it. And as we discussed before, there are many buildings throughout the US and throughout the world that are rotting in stages of condition that they were in originally. Nobody wants to touch them to alter its original state, but they're going to fall down unless it's done right. I can't replace this wood anymore with that group center, where those 3 windows are with a group of pink. You see the rot below that window? That's only 5 years old. There's a huge way up. I've spoken with Sample Lumber and with Curtis Lumber. Directly on that roof up above it, you'll be able to see where that runoff, it comes off the top of the gable, comes off that hip roof, it comes straight off that slate. And as Rick will probably tell you, slate is not good for holding snow. It's going to come down, it's going to come down fast, and it's going to come down, rain will pour, and it all accumulates everything underneath. I don't want to mess with the structure, the structural detail. That's what makes this building. I don't know, I've impressed on this is our 3rd meeting about it. I've impressed in every meeting that I don't want to do that. All I want to do is cut back on the amount of rot, preserve the building, put exactly the siding that's back on there now. And I did go to find the triple. It's going to take a few months to get it, to find that triple siding, the sample that's here. But it matches beautifully. And we cornered, there was a discussion we had regarding the outside corners in that bay window. We trimmed the Reg, I think you talked about that. Let's see if I can find that. It's one of these. Anyway, it doesn't show an outside corner. Where the air conditioner is in the window, bottom right, that inside corner was trimmed. Take a piece of inside corner, trim it so it fits, and it fits the siding in it and reduces the amount of exposure in the corner. Same thing with those 4 outside corners on that gable. So it'll have a similar presence. I don't want to put, you see where everything is pink? Typically when siding is done, you take coil stock, you bend it, put it up, you eliminate all of that pretty stuff and put up this white, is it aluminum, Rick? What is that, PVC?
PVC.
PVC. It looks plastic. You want to go see, I'm sure you know where this building is, and I'm sure you've looked at it, and Rick has been on site to see what's there. We looked across the street. They did exactly what I was just talking about, what we shouldn't do. They did on that green building across the street. They put the green siding up, and they took all of that fascia off, and they put up coil stock. It looks awful. They destroyed the character of the building. We don't want to. Now, it also should be noted on the same lot, there's another building in the back, used to be the carriage house. It's smaller, it's a little 2-story, it's a cute little thing. It's not on a historical district, but if I do this in white, I want to do the same thing in white in the back as well. I don't need planning board approval. Joe McMahon's already said it's not on this list, just this building. All they need to permit to go ahead and do it. So the two will make a very impressive corner one time.
Can I just give you a time reference?
Sure.
The submittal is dated October 20th, where you illustrated the corners. At least that's the date on.
Yeah, that's when they sent them in.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not the dates of the photos.
that's when
I'm a little late
submitted.
for the camera.
Yeah.
But you have photos of it. Whatever you asked for, I provided. And as I said, I'm diligent. And I think the state understands that I'm diligent with it as well.
I do have another question. The area is highlighted in pink. Some of those areas will require attention.
Oh, painting, scraping and painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the features that is identified is the methodology that is going to be used and the sensitivity of those areas. Is there anything, like you're not going to sandblast or anything that will deface the
Not with
Building
lead painting.
feature. Yeah,
No.
we just need to have that discussion to be thorough and
Scrape,
questioning.
taking down the wood as much as possible on a prime. There's going to be countless layers on it there anyways. We'll take it down as much as we can. Try and smooth it out. And if you've seen the building physically, if you've been by it, the detail is in pretty good shape. Some of it's there, but it's because we're waiting for this. But a lot of that detail is in good shape. It's the dental work, that looks good. The outcropping on the windows, they all did well. We replaced that flat roof twice since I bought it. Exactly the same. Replaced the structures in that roof on the porch, excuse me, to the left. We did that. We replaced had to re-support the porch on the front. Mr. Burdick ran into it about 27 years ago. My former English teacher came off and took it off. So we put it back up and supported it exactly the way it was. Kurt, you look next.
Just following along.
Okay, how am I doing?
For the presentation.
Okay, thanks. I think I've done the research. The latest SHPO letter that we have states that although siding materials may be acceptable for areas of the building where the issue is occurring, alternative siding may be acceptable for areas of the building where the issues are occurring. I don't want it piecemeal. This is going to look ratty. If we start playing with that, we start playing with that areas where it's going to look piecemeal. Let me do this side, and the back. Your opinion, if you want me to do the side on the right for continuity, that would be nice. That would look great. The building would shine, and it's going to stay there. As I said, Mr. Studholme built this. All the younger generation who don't know where the sub shop is downtown, used to be Studholme's men's clothier place. We used to buy Stetson and, as I said, Van Heusen shirts. He was a nice man. This must have been one palace when he lived in it, because it has a back stairway with, just as an aside, for quarters, for maids' quarters, and a full basement with top. It's got to be an 8-foot ceiling on it. It just is gorgeous. The state in their letter, just to reiterate, it talked about a smooth finish. They don't make a smooth finish. I had samples look and Curtis look. They couldn't find one. They're calling the manufacturers to see if they can get one in a 333, which is what the siding is, that sample that I brought in. In fact, Kurt, you were sitting over here, and Reg, you were over there. We passed the samples around, we passed around the wood, the vinyl, which was double 4 at the time, which is no longer. It's now triple, which looks precisely the way that it is now. The windows will have will have J channel, but it'll be reduced in size so that the reveal, is that what they call it, Rick?
Yes.
So that the reveal is accentuated and not reduced. So essentially, when you walk by, you're gonna say, what a nice looking building. Somebody cared about it. Took me forever to keep the pigeons out of the top 3 windows. And students from hanging off the roof. I've done, in essence, I've done my homework. I've done what you asked. I've done what the state requested. The state in their letter said generally, we don't like it. However, alternative uses may be employed. And then they restricted that as well, only, and then they said, may be employed in affected areas. To me, that's piecemealing. And as we discussed before, this is Plattsburgh. We have to remind Albany where that is. We live here. What you want me to do, just tell me what you want me to do.
I have a question, Rick. And it's really just to make certain I understand. I believe I do, but looking at the illustration, all of the areas that are highlighted are currently wood and they will remain wood. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's a very similar question that I had, Reg. I asked Mr. Lattenville to give us an explanation how he will treat those areas. Gently scrape, peeling paint, smooth where he can to the degree he can, and repaint those surfaces.
So we're not talking about wrapping into the windows. We're talking only about replacing clapboard.
That's correct.
And there's been some discussion about faux grain. And I'm not certain where Mr. Lattenville is on that right now, but I am pretty clear on where SHPO would like to be. So could we clarify that, please?
Mr. Lattenville, the term faux grain.
Full grain. What it means, Reg?
The fake grain. Are we going to go with smooth vinyl or are we going to go
No,
with
no,
vinyl
you
with
can't.
fake grain?
Smooth would have to be metal, and metal is going to rust when you cut it. And the price goes up there along with fiber.
So smooth vinyl is not available?
It may be, Samples is looking into it, but the Andover, I think, is one of the manufacturers. They had to call them to find out if it was available. Curtis never heard of it. Samples was going to call. In all honesty, I've never seen a smooth vinyl. This is, I don't know, Rick, is it visible?
It's textured.
It's slightly textured. There's not a lot on there.
It's not deep.
No, and it will pretty much blend with what the trim would be when applied and the trim is painted. That trim's not going to be smooth, Reg. Not with that number of coats of paint on it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Rick, I have another procedural question. Should the project description be modified to reflect that we're only talking about replacing clapboard and that the architectural details will remain intact? Because if this application is approved, I'm certain it'll be referenced in the future. And maintaining the architectural integrity of that building is clearly one of our primary concerns / considerations.
You are absolutely correct, but I think that will be done in the motion. Whatever motion that's made should clearly reflect the intent of the board.
Okay, thank you.
Kurt, Loretta, do either of you have any questions or comments or anything of Mr. Lattenville?
on our house, we put up vinyl, and we had a choice between smooth and textured. Actually, for what we put up, it was more difficult I wanted textured and it was more difficult to get that. But I also knew that we were going to be power washing it every year. So, because that, I don't know if that factors into why SHPA recommends smooth, because when you do have the textured, you get a lot of dirt collecting in there. Again, we just get it power washed every year, but certainly the smooth, I had more trouble finding the textured than I did finding the smooth. So I'm not quite sure what the problem is there.
Is it double four, Loretta?
Yeah, my house.
Yeah, well, we're talking triple three on this one. So it might be available in this type of siding that you bought, double four clapboard,
No, we've got the 3-inch.
3-inch.
We have 3-inch, but anyway, is insulation going to be put underneath the vinyl?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, we determined that insulation behind there would cause a moisture issue. And it would harbor an ill effect on those reveals on the windows because it would stand out.
Right. Okay.
I guess I do have one other question. When you install, or if you install the vinyl siding, will you be removing the clapboards underneath, or
No.
will you be going?
Right over.
So you will preserve what's underneath by applying a weatherproof siding over what's there. Okay. The answer to that, if you didn't hear it, was he's adding it as protection.
Jim, I have a question. Since you're not going to be doing the windows, around the windows, how is the vinyl going to meet the wood? What's going to be?
It'll be J
Are you
channel.
just going to caulk it, or how are you going to do that?
Yeah, it'll be pocketed in J channel, but that J channel is going to be reduced in size.
Okay.
It can be cut.
Yeah, Loretta, one of the questions or one of the comments from SHPO was the profile of the window trim.
Right.
They wanted to make sure that the window trim extended out in that it wasn't covered over, or the profile of the siding didn't exceed the profile of the window trim.
Right. Yeah, I understood that. They don't want it to be flush.
Correct.
And
I think there's a picture in there, isn't there, that we looked at earlier that shows that?
Jim?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it was. Right after this, wasn't it?
yeah, it was in.
There you go. That's the one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, it still stands out. What was back?
You can also see the grain.
Never gives up the remote. Come on.
Reg, can you repeat that, please?
You can also see the grain that we were talking about earlier if you look at that top clapboard.
Remember, you're about 1.5 feet away from it. From the street, won't be a difference.
No, I think.
this may just be an optical illusion, but when I look at this picture, to me, it looks like the vinyl is almost flush with the trim. The only piece that's raised is the piece of metal that the vinyl slides into that goes next to the window frame. But maybe I'm just not seeing it correctly.
Slides into the J channel, Loretta?
Right. But that's something that you're going to put on. Correct?
We've reduced that, where the little J channel where it meets the side of the window. We've reduced that small enough where the siding will slip into it to its maximum. Without that, the siding, we need to caulk it all. And I don't think that's gonna look good.
I believe Kurt had a question earlier.
So my question is different. If Loretta still has questions about the windows and the J channels, please continue.
No, go ahead, Kurt.
My question is for the applicant. I understand the desire for vinyl. I haven't yet heard why we're ruling out the hardy board.
Well, many factors. Cost of product, the weight to put it on, the expense is incredible, and my crew doesn't want to work with it because it's toxic. Once you start cutting that and getting it in, you have to have a certain environment to work on. It's not as simple as the state made it out to be. We'll just put it up. Plus, it's going to be bulky as all get out once you put it up. It just doesn't have any trim on it. It's not beveled. It'll definitely, you'll lose the reveal in those windows. Profile.
Okay, thank you. Cool, thank you.
Yes.
Does anyone on this board or anyone in the planning office know why SHPO has recommended the hardy board, the cement?
I couldn't speak to Weston Davy as our contact in the SHPO office. I wouldn't be able to speak to his reasoning. I do know that through the materials and the, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to remember the full name, but the U.S. Secretary of the Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties with, and there's more to it, but I can't remember it. Within there, it does recommend that as an appropriate alternative material.
I think I recall in the first SHPO letter that we received on this project that there was a very simple statement that said it was a closer match. And I don't remember the rest of the statement, but I recall some language about match.
We do have all three letters in the PowerPoint. I think they're a little difficult to read. I tried to expand them to the size possible, but. I think it was the second letter where they began referring to hardy board,
Okay, so
the August letter. This one. The first paragraph under the yellow.
I'll add that I've had limited application experience with hardy board. It's very different than handling and applying wood. But the end result in terms of appearance and durability, I've been very happy with.
Mike, I guess reading this, I wonder if they are suggesting that the clapboard would be removed and then the fiber cement siding would be put up. Does anyone have any, I don't have any knowledge about how hardy board is applied. Does it replace the siding that's there, or does it go on top of the siding that's there?
My guess, Loretta, is the existing siding would be removed and the hardy board would be used as a replacement.
Okay, right. Okay, yeah, it would have to be in order for it not to block out the windows and block out the all of the trim and architectural features. Okay, thank you.
That's correct. And one of the other reasons for, in previous discussion, as I remember, the removal of the clapboards is also the removal of the lead paint surfaces that this existing clapboard has been treated with.
I'm sorry, Rick, I couldn't hear your comment.
The hardy board, if I'm hearing things correctly, would require the clapboard to be removed. The existing clapboard has been treated with lead-based paint. So that removal, becomes a little more difficult than what it would be for untreated or more recently painted wood product.
Yeah, that's actually addressed here in the in the fourth paragraph, Rick. It
Yeah.
talks about that, although they suggest that it's built into the cost.
Yeah. I remembered the question. I didn't remember where I saw it. So
Yeah, exactly. Yep, there it is.
thank you. Do we have any other questions? Mr. Lanville, would you like to add anything more?
Not at all. I've answered every question that was posed by state and locals. I hope you appreciate my preservation for this, and I hope to get your approval.
So can I make a comment, Rick?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I want to commend the applicant first on due diligence on this project. I mean, you have been a model applicant and brought all of the materials that have been suggested and documentation for many, for 2 iterations of hearings in front of the planning board and weeks on end. And I really appreciate that. And I also really appreciate the work that you have done on other historic preservation projects around the city. And your efforts on this house, which is an important and contributing home in its neighborhood, are equally appreciated. The challenge that I have on this one is that we have a zoning ordinance that says we should strive to restore with like for like materials. We have a Department of Interior historic preservation document that says we should go with like for like materials. We have a SHPO recommendation to go with like for like or an alternative. And we have public comment suggesting that we need to go with like for like. And so I can't come up with a reason, a justification in this case that we would make a determination against those 4 really strong criteria that we have to take into consideration. And there are also many other houses in this neighborhood that in the future will be coming up for similar kinds of restoration, and this project sets a precedent for those. I want to make sure that we get this one right, that we do this one correctly so that we set the precedents for those future decisions. As Reg said, they will reference this project. And so this is an important one to get right.
We did have that discussion earlier.
I can't come up with a justification at this point about why we would go against those four pieces of information: public comment, SHPO, Department of Interior, and our own ordinance. I'd be willing to do some, I guess, combination of alternative material in the most deteriorated areas and wood on the rest. I absolutely hear the applicants say that they don't want to use a piecemeal approach, and I agree. That would be a plan B for me. For me, it's pretty clear that like for like is what all of the recommendation is, and what our ordinance suggests. So I have a difficult time justifying a way to approve the application as it stands.
That's why we have a planning board, so we can discuss this and take it one by one.
Kurt, I really appreciate your comments and understand completely the value in your statements. My only concern, and this is what I personally wrestle with, and I'll tell you, the comment regarding 121 Court Street is probably the most impactful reason why I'm going to make this comment. That was a property that was allowed to or disallowed to cover over with a vinyl siding that today is in need of windows in the areas that were problematic. The siding may be deteriorated to the point that the structure has been somewhat compromised, at least the subsurface under the finished surface needs to be corrected. When I read that note, I happened to drive by the property today, and the area in reference, I was working with the city at the time, and I remembered the application going before the board. And today it's almost in total disrepair in that area. So I struggle with the question, are we preserving a visual or are we trying to preserve a structure? Because when you disregard the waterproofing by whatever means of a structure, it promotes the deterioration of the building. I personally favor saving buildings versus an aesthetic look. I don't see a lot of distinguishing when you look at it from the streetscape. I personally don't have the eye that can distinguish between one or the other. I'm sure there are people that have that talent. I just don't. So I still battle with that question. Are we going to preserve a structure, or are we going to preserve a non-contributing, and I'm going to use that term loosely because I really tried to look to see if the clapboard was a contributing factor or feature of the building to make it historically significant. So I battle with that question, but I'm going to yield to preserving a structure first.
I think the goal is both. Clearly, the goal is both, and I'd like to believe that there are ways to achieve both of those goals. The first SHPO letter, the June SHPO letter, I think states that, at least from SHPO's perspective, that the vinyl may not be as watertight as we would like, that it also may create its own moisture issues.
Yeah, I on that, I can only speak from experience on that. And we had the insulation put on top of the wood, on top of the original clapboard. And our home was built in 1890, so about the same time as this home was. And we were up against the same thing. And it broke my heart not to, we could not afford to do like for like, would have to move out. And with 3 kids in school, we weren't going to do that. And our home is not a historical home. So we did go with the vinyl, and we did an insulation wrap around the house. I don't know if anyone remembers, we looked like a Diet Coke can for about 3 months. And then they did the vinyl on top. Now we also enclosed the windows, and it was an extraordinary process that they did to enclose all of the frames. And we replaced all of the windows at the same time because we had all the original windows. We have no issues of leaking. Our heating bills plummeted. I had no idea we were bleeding so much heat into the exterior. Now, again, this is just my personal experience, and I didn't have an historical building. In a perfect world, it's like for like, no doubt about it. I can only comment on my personal experience, and I know how prohibitive it would have been. Now, the cement siding was not an option at that time, and our neighbors across the street did it, and it's quite beautiful what they did. The same guys who did our house, the siding on our house, did the cement across the street, but they did a totally different look. They went from clapboard and replaced it with cement shingles, and it's a stunning look. You know, we live in the North Country. Weather is always going to be an issue. It doesn't matter what we put on our homes. And I just know for myself, we have not suffered from the weather since we redid our house. We had many issues with leaking. Now, again, it was the original clapboard. So, I mean, if it rained outside, we had a flood inside. So, anyway, that's just my personal experience, and I'm just throwing it out there for whatever it's worth. I agree, it's heartbreaking, when you can't do like for like. I know for us it was going to cost, I can't even remember, and it was a few years ago, so it wouldn't even be applicable, but the cost of like for like, we had to sell the house if we had to do that.
So I just want to state, because it hasn't been mentioned tonight, that our board is that our board isn't and can't be in the business of weighing whether or not a treatment is too expensive, right? Is that line at 5,000, 10, 50, or 100? We can't be in determining what's too expensive for an applicant and what isn't, because that just opens up a Pandora's box of strange precedents and arguments, and it's not the way that historic preservation and planning occurs.
Well, in
I
that
agree
case,
with that comment.
it just has to be like for like then. And if we lose buildings, we lose buildings. Because yes, the cost, for people in Plattsburgh to take off the old clapboard and put on new clapboard. I don't know, Jim, what was the cost of that going to be to redo that whole house?
It's in the application.
I think the the cement board was 18,000 something, the wood was 19,000, the vinyl was 3,000 or 4,000.
Wait a minute, is that for the entire house?
Yeah, each of those quotes was for coverage of the entire.
A lot of
house.
windows, and doors in that house.
Is
How
it
is
fair
that?
to assume that if clapboard was used, we'd be talking about residing the entire house? Or would we be talking about residing specific areas?
Let me just give further clarification to Shalice's numbers. That's for the material cost only. We have a quote from AC and RL Carpenters. Their labor cost on the wood, labor alone was 34,500, materials 15,000, and then rental equipment.
Is that for the entire house, Jim?
Yes. That's without this, I think it was a note on there that didn't include disposal fees. This is
Did
gonna
not
be
include
lead paint
disposal
issues.
Correct.
That's a different animal.
Additional cost to be determined upon
No.
examination.
Thank you, Rick. Sorry, I did that from memory, so thank you.
Yeah, I just happened to be looking at it. Any other comments, questions? Mr. Landville, you want to make any closing remark?
I'd like to make a motion.
Do you want to, I'm going to ask you the question.
I would like a vote tonight.
Okay,
I've done all the due diligence I possibly can and answered anything the city and the state wants. Thank you for the city. Actually, thanks for volunteering. I don't know why you want to do this, but thanks for doing it. Honestly, I don't know why. Thanks. I'm going to be back again for other things because I'm going to work until I die. So I want you to know what kind of work I do and how I do it. I'm upfront, I'm straight. Some people don't like me being as direct as I am, but I am direct. Thank you very much.
would anyone like to, Kurt?
Yeah, I have a question about point of order. If the application is denied tonight, and the applicant decides then replace with fiberboard or wood or a different material, does the applicant have to wait 1 year?
I don't believe so. I believe that would be considered substantially different. So I believe he would be allowed to reapply without having to wait.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. We have a public hearing with this. Shalice, is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was that?
A public hearing,
Yes,
this
we,
application?
yeah.
Okay. Let me open the public hearing.
we have nobody
We
online.
have no attendees online.
Okay.
With no one present. There
We have
being no public question, I'll close the public hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion on the application?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Well, let me make the motion, Reg.
Wow.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion, but I didn't make it yet. I move. I don't have the number of this application in front of me because I'm looking at my Zoom screen. So I move to reject the application numbered. Shalice, can you please fill in the number for me?
2021-13.
Can I, Kurt, can I ask you to hold 1 second?
Yes.
We have to make our seeker determination first on this.
You don't,
Didn't we do that?
no, that has not been completed. That has not been completed. The seeker action has not been taken. I honestly can't remember. If you're gonna deny, I don't know if you have to be seeker, but I would imagine you do.
Well, we won't know that until the vote, so prior to the vote, we should probably do the seeker review, make a determination.
I agree. I mean, I honestly don't know, so I'll leave it in your hands.
Do you have that seeker work prepared?
No, we always have to go through the questionnaire, so I have to.
That's what I mean.
Okay, so for anyone watching and for anyone in attendance who has not been through this before, I will read each question. If I hear no response, I will check no or small impact may occur. If you feel otherwise, please begin discussion. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
I would check that one, yes.
Moderate to large impact may occur.
I agree.
Do you guys want to put that to a vote or?
I
There a
think it
consensus?
needs a vote, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because I do not agree with that. I think that, well, yeah, yeah, I'm not quite sure how we proceed. I mean, it's my belief that any action taking to improve the facade of that building is going to improve the quality of the neighborhood. I mean, it's in rough shape right now. It's in really rough shape. So doing nothing, I believe, but I don't know that that's exactly what the seeker is talking about.
So, Loretta, I'm not sure. I clicked on a link in the secret document that brings up more information on how to determine an impact here. Are you guys
Yep.
able to do that?
I can't see it on mine. Can anyone else see it? Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
Yep.
Do you guys want me to read this out loud or do you want to take a minute to read that?
I'm just,
Rick, are you able to see it?
Can you read it into the minutes because it's not printed?
Okay, so I will read this into the minutes. Background, many people define a community's character in very general terms: suburban, rural, urban, quiet, safe, scenic, or friendly are terms often used. Others describe community character only in terms of visual features. Community character is broader than this, however. Community character is defined by all the man-made and natural features of the area. It includes the visual character of a town, village, or city, and its visual landscape, but it also includes the buildings and structures and their uses, natural environment, activities, town services, and local policies that are in place. Development can cause changes in several community characteristics, including intensity of land use, housing, public services, aesthetic quality, and the balance between residential and commercial uses. The next section refers to specific questions from the environmental assessment form part 1 that was completed by the applicant. It was in the June application. I can pull up that Dropbox link if you guys need to review that, but specifically questions 6, 1, 3, 4, and 5 are relevant to answering this. To analyze this question in order to decide if impacts will occur, reviewing agency should look at the available information and ask, will there be a change to the visual or architectural character of the broader landscape or streetscape, or will it introduce a different sized structure than currently exists? Does it create a change in the nature and intensity of land uses in the area? Will there be a change in the nature of housing in the area, such as changing a single family neighborhood into a multifamily one, or change the affordability of housing? Does it create the need for more public services such as parks, recreation facilities, police, or fire protection? In determining will there be an impact, most proposed actions will result in some change in community character. There are probably few that will result in no change at all. Examples of actions that may not affect community character include passage of a local law that is not related to land use or other discretionary actions that require seeker but do not result in building or development. If, after evaluation of the above questions, you find that the proposed action will not affect visual character, intensity of land use, housing, or public services in any way, then there will be no impact to community character. If a proposed project is going to change the character or quality of the community by impacting visual character, intensity of land use, housing, or public services, then there could be an impact to community character. In this case, the impact must be evaluated as to size. If there is an impact, how big will it be? If there will be an impact, the reviewing agency must then evaluate the magnitude of that impact. This will depend on the overall scale and context of the proposed project as described in the introduction to part 2. The reviewing agency should be reasonable when conducting this review. For additional information on the concept of reasonableness as it applies to seeker, refer to section F in the introduction of the seeker handbook. Small impact. The following may result in small impacts. The visual character of the area is changed in a minor way, but is generally consistent in the design, placement, size, intensity, and architecture of the neighborhood or community. Demand on public services can be handled by existing resources. The balance between retail, commercial uses, and residential uses does not change in a significant way. A moderate to large impact may occur. The following may result in a moderate to large impact. If the proposed project moderately or significantly changes the visual character of the area, if it introduces a project that is of a larger scale than currently exists, the demands on public services or housing will result in the need to extend existing services. If the proposed project moderately or significantly changes the visual character of the area, or if it introduces a project that is of a larger scale than currently exists, a moderate to large impact could occur. Similarly, projects that do place additional demands on public services, housing, or other characteristics could also have moderate to large impacts. There are some examples below. Would you guys like me to read those?
I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, thank you, Shalice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm personally getting the sense that this is more about land density than it is the aesthetics of a historic building.
Correct.
With respect to the question, I'm gonna agree with Loretta that the answer should be no.
So we have 2 people saying no and 2 saying yes. Is that correct? Or 2 saying small or no impact and 2 saying moderate to large impact. Is that correct?
Why don't we take a roll?
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Loretta Rietzema, a roll call of no or small impact may occur. Loretta Rietzema,
I vote that it should be no.
Rick Perry,
I vote no.
Reg Carter,
I vote yes.
Kurt Burbidge.
I vote yes.
We have a split vote. No motion, no vote carries in that circumstance. If it was a motion, it would fail.
Correct.
So, but Shalice, this is only a question on number 4. We can check moderate to large impact and still pass the seeker, right? This is only one question out of 11.
Yes.
Impact doesn't automatically reject the review, and I'm comfortable with that.
That is correct.
As am I.
Yeah, I would just make the statement that I believe this is an impact, but I don't believe that there's an environmental quality problem here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Still doesn't solve the problem about what do we do about this question.
Yeah. I don't think it carries a moderate to large community-wide impact. We're talking vinyl siding on one property that in looking at these examples, I'm not sure it qualifies to that degree.
Yeah, I agree with Rick. I mean, if I go 5 years without doing anything to my house, and just let it get overgrown and disgusting, if I then cleaned it, that would have a dramatic impact on what my house looked like. But it does not impact my community. It doesn't impact zoning. It doesn't impact the density of families. It doesn't impact the size of the other buildings around me. It doesn't impact the neighborhood per se. It just becomes an eyesore. But I don't believe that constitutes an impact, a measurable impact on the community. I mean, otherwise, if we'd wind up having, people wouldn't be allowed to hang certain flags because the city would come in and say, that's having a negative impact. We don't like that flag.
I think fundamentally, we're talking about an area that's been deemed historic. And the question is whether or not the application of vinyl siding is going to have an adverse impact on that area deemed historic. That's a different issue, at least in my view.
Are there any other homes in the historic district, homes that have been designated as historic, that have vinyl siding on them? I believe there are.
There probably are. I don't know what the contributing level of those homes are or which houses they are, but I believe that there are vinyl homes.
Yep.
Okay, so we have an impasse here that let's move on to number 4 and we'll proceed through and then we can revisit number 3.
Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that caused the establishment of a critical environmental area? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies? Will the proposed action impact existing public or private wastewater treatment utilities? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, for example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
So if I can make a comment on this one, we have a state historic preservation association, we have a Department of Interior, and we have our own city ordinance that all seem to place significant attention on the building material and the use of like for like materials in restoration. To say that that's an insignificant impact is to say that those three fundamental guidances we have it wrong, right? And if we have to recognize the attention that those resources place on this point as being a significant point. Checking moderate to large impact does not mean that we have to disapprove the seeker. I don't believe that there's a big environmental impact here. I'm willing to approve the seeker, and I would vote yes to approve the seeker. But we have to give weight. I think that we have to give weight to those resources and the investment that our community, our state, and our nation has placed on historic preservation and call that significant.
Kurt, I agree with you in a perfect world. Unfortunately, I'm looking at the reality of the population much of the population on Court Street and Brinkerhoff, perhaps. And through no fault of anyone on this board, that area has evolved into a population of college students. That's what these property, and they, the people who own these properties got permission along the way to do that. So the character of the existing community, not the community that, 100 years ago it was, when we had horse-drawn carriages and it was all gorgeous. The existing community is college students who are in apartments, in homes that have already had their character seriously compromised because they've been cut up into apartments. So, the integrity of those homes, like it or not, they're not what they used to be. They're not the gorgeous homes. What exists today and the character that exists today is college housing.
So if I can just respond to that, Loretta. First, I would say there are many gorgeous homes in that neighborhood, many that have been restored and many that have restored with wood siding. But the second thing, and we should not disregard that because it's an injustice to all of the folks who own and have invested in those homes. But the second thing I would say is I absolutely agree with you that change over the last 50 years or whenever that began has been significant. And this is our chance to say, yes, it's this exact action. It's the exact approval of, it's the allowance of not restoring these properties that has led to the deterioration of the neighborhood. And we should recognize it as significant. And this is our chance to say that this evolution has had a large impact. And this is this is what we're doing tonight is a small step in that impact. It's death by 1,000 cuts. This is one more cut, and we should recognize the significance of one cut.
Well, except also, I look at what we approve over on the base, and, we have acknowledged that in historical areas, for instance, new windows with vinyl sills around them are far preferable to and more heat efficient than what existed before. And we approve that because the reality is artificial synthetic materials are a hell of a lot better than they used to be. Yes, the people who can, lovingly and carefully and beautifully restore homes. Oh my God, and I know of cities where they create districts where to live there is a required, you will do that if you live in one of those homes. I don't know that it's within the, if it's in our job description to be saying to an entire neighborhood, by the way, we've decided that it's time to get everyone up to speed on what this neighborhood could be. And we're starting here. From now on, this is the way it's going to be, folks. Because that's a big step. And I don't know if it's within our job description to be doing that. And yeah, because it goes one way or the other. But when you look at the seeker, it says very clearly the existing community. And we're not the ones who get to decide whether or not those homes are going to be restored to their original glory. That's up to people who buy them. But the people who own them right now are just trying to keep them standing. And that's what I see this project as let's just keep the damn house standing. And then if at some point in the future, someone can come in and buy that and restore it to being a single family home with all of the original features restored, that will be heaven. But, in the meantime, if that home just goes to shambles and has to get destroyed, then we've lost everything. So the existing community has vinyl siding. The existing community has college students living in carved up homes. And like it or not, that's what exists. And this is an existing owner. This isn't someone buying the house and saying, hey, I'm going to buy this house and I want to know if it's okay.
I would just like to clarify again, the existing community in this neighborhood is a mosaic of many members of our community. Owners who live in their residence and who have preserved them, and rental units with college students and rental units without college students. And we should recognize the diversity of this neighborhood. But that's neither here nor there, nor the point that I really want to make. We have spent probably, I don't know, 10 hours reviewing this project and asked the applicant to come back to the board 3 times, and the applicant has done way more than 10 hours on this project. Are we willing to say that we did all of that work for an insignificant change? And I just want to make the point again that checking moderate to large is recognition of the change, but it does not mean that we can't approve the seeker and get through this step.
And I'm going to add a couple comments from my historic knowledge of the district. And I'm not sure that everybody even understands it, but do you realize that part of this RH district was a commercial district that evolved into a business district, a B2 district, that evolved into an R2, which is multifamily residential, that evolved into an R1, that subsequently evolved into an RH district? Why is that significant? Because people that transform these properties by right of permissibility change the character of those properties. And it wasn't until the 1970s, around 1976. And do you know that in 1990, this district wasn't even recognized by the state of New York? The city of Plattsburgh adopted a historic district, but they never submitted it or filed it with the state of New York. It wasn't until Keith Herculow days as city clerk that it was recognized in that filing took place. We tend, as a community, we tend to criticize the people that transform these properties. Yeah, they're gorgeous properties. Even the people that transformed them recognize that. But by right of their own, by the community permissibility, these changes had been made. And now for us to sit back and criticize them because they didn't conform to the time frame of the 1890s, I don't think that that's right. And I don't think that that's the intent of any of this. I think the maintenance by right of permissibility to maintain the character of that property as it was allowed to change is what we should be responsible for, not the deterioration or degradation of a building that was intended to be a single family residence that by right of permissibility was allowed to evolve into multifamily. These people should not be criticized. We have a drastic housing shortage in the community today. Can you imagine what it would be like had we not had multifamily buildings? And I don't care who occupies these buildings. We have a challenge to meet, and the challenge is to preserve to the best of our ability, to go back to the character of the way a building was originally constructed and say, we want to maintain that. Well, guess what? Because of the lack of action, because the lack of recognition of historic districts and historic sites, we've allowed this change to take place. For us to turn around and ignore what we allowed people to do by right, I'll use the term again, by right of permissibility. I don't think it's within our responsibility or within our authority to go back and tell them you made a mistake, that we should preserve something that we gave you the right to change. That's the way I see it. And I want to preserve the structure for what it is, enhance the character of the building, maintain the distinguishing characteristics, and also maintain the habitability of the structure that we hope will be around for a very long time. So I don't know that that historic knowledge means anything, but to have seen it unfold through the years that I've lived here and the years that I've been involved, I don't think we are in a position that we can unjustly criticize people that by their right of permissibility and by their personal investments chose to utilize a structure that everybody else had the opportunity to acquire and do with as they wished. Sorry, that's my point. Can we turn to the next page? Is there a space in here that we have the opportunity for clarification of any point that we've made? That we can, and I really think we all agree on many of the same things.
There's this section right here is reserved for every question in part 2 that was answered, moderate or large impact may occur, or if there is a need to explain why a particular element of the proposed action may or will not result in a significant adverse environmental impact, please complete part 3. There's a big text box.
Okay, so whichever way we vote on question number 3, we have the opportunity to clarify whatever way we choose to answer that question. And the record will be clear. And Reg, to your point earlier, as long as we can accurately reflect our intent, then I think we've done the job that we're supposed to do. Is that accurate?
I agree.
Okay. So let's break down the question and see how that fits into our ability to come up with justification for the point that we are trying to make, okay? So taking it forward, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Are we saying that to a moderate or large degree we are? Is that the answer that you want to create? I'm not sure we can get past that hurdle. Are we talking about the community at large, or are we talking about the block that this building's on?
Well, part of the problem, it seems, Rick, is that the area we're talking about is kind of a hybrid. We've got a mix. Somebody used the word diversity. I think it was Kurt. Structures and occupants, in that area. Some of the homes there from a historical perspective are spectacular. Many of the homes in that area, in terms of the potential from a historical point of view, are spectacular. But there are some exceptions, as have been mentioned, for a variety of reasons. But there's no question, it's a hybrid, at least in my view. I think that's part of the difficulty with this question, because it's certainly not black and white.
So let me offer something. Again, I'm actually willing to approve the seeker. I don't think that this warrants a positive determination of environmental impact, right? Approving the seeker is a negative determination. I don't think that this application warrants a positive determination, but I do think that there are impacts that should be recognized. I would actually be willing to modify what is my original kind of voting in the list here. And I would be willing to say no to question 3 and say moderate to large for question 8. Will the proposed impact impair the character or quality of an important historic or archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resource? Yes, clearly, we've been debating this for many hours and asked the applicant to do a lot of work. That deserves to be recognized as an investment and significant. But then I'm willing to approve this seeker as a negative declaration. I want this investment in the applicant's time and our time recognize that we're taking this time because we recognize that changes are occurring.
Kurt, I could agree with that.
I do too. We've gone from the community, which I think we do agree is mixed, to the specific property with that change.
Exactly.
So there's 2 checks that I've just added. Does that represent the board's collective opinion?
Yeah, that looks good.
I agree.
I agree.
So those. Do you want to provide a response?
Yes, we do need a response to correctly characterize our opinion, and in our opinion, I think is consistent. Features within the statement. I think part of that feature is to localize the concern to the structure. But I think that has to go both ways. I have to say that despite the press form not characterizing the siding as a significant historical, we find that it's inconsistent, that the vinyl siding is inconsistent with the original material. Therefore, it's probably not themed appropriate. And I'm just saying, talking out loud here. And if you want to share thoughts as to how to craft this, please. Not characterize society as.
Take us back to the question, Cherise.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
How about the Chris form does not characterize the siding as historically significant. Therefore, our board had little guidance for determining whether or not alteration of the siding was significant or not. Yeah, good enough.
That looks good enough. Yep.
I just want to make grammar, sorry.
But we want to recognize that the siding of a structure is a significant component of its historic nature, and that alteration deserves to be taken seriously. I don't know. If one of my students wrote it, I'd give it a C, but it would pass.
Yeah. 3 hours later, I think get back to me tomorrow. Make it our homework.
Should there be any agency reference in that statement? You know, as Kurt took us through a few minutes ago.
I'll put that sentence there and let you guys interpret the guidance received.
Just the SHPO reference as an example.
Whoops, sorry.
This is good, Reg. The SHPO provided the following guidance, and then I think we should just cut and paste the paragraph from the SHPO letter that says vinyl siding is not an appropriate replacement in this case. And I would just add that I
Yeah.
may be in the minority on this entire project and process, and that's democracy, and I'm okay with that. But if this project is eventually approved, I hope that we lay some groundwork for some real criteria for approving or disapproving the next project that comes. And this statement and whatever motion eventually is possibly approved is the place to begin doing that.
Yeah, and one of SHPO's comments characterized it as generally.
Right,
Not,
that was the latest one said generally.
yes. So there was a progression in SHPO's statements in a bit of an inconsistency in their statement as well.
Correct.
I think it's fine to build in that qualifier. It's a
something
general statement.
that occurred to me is that, in number 3 of the seeker talked about the existing community. And for myself, I think going forward, looking at the entire picture of as it exists today, as we go forward evaluating, can help us a lot. For instance, if we're looking at a building that is looking to make if someone is proposing to make major changes on a building that truly doesn't need it, doesn't warrant it. Again, if someone is coming in and proposing to turn a single family home in the historic district into a multifamily, we would be looking at how it exists today to make our evaluation. And I think the property that Jim owns today is college student housing that is in desperate need of being updated to support its present mission, which is to safely house college students. And as Rick pointed out, he got permission to, I don't know who made it into college housing. I don't know if that was Jim or who did. But anyway, someone got permission to do that. And so we are looking at the existing structure in, a very rich tapestry of population and architectural style and treatments that go in and out of a loosely defined historical district, because we don't even really have a clearly, a cohesive district, historical district. So if we focus somewhat, for me anyway, if I focus on the existing, then it's what's the best possible thing we can do for this existing structure, given its mission right now and where it is in terms of just continuing to exist.
I'm not sure, but did I capture everything you guys wanted there? I don't know if you can see it yet.
I was following along, Shalice, and I like the statement as it reads. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, Loretta, I agree with what you're saying. It's, time period is everything. I agree with you. It's a mystery.
I think conditions on the ground, it's okay for conditions on the ground to impact the decisions that we're making. In this particular neighborhood, you know, it just is it's a myriad of architectural styles and population styles and, oh, Shalice, I'm just running my mouth. You don't need to put that down.
So if everybody had a chance to read what Shalice's statement there, I would like to make a motion to make a negative declaration on the seeker.
And adopt motion 2021-13A, which declares it a negative declaration.
Kurt, can I just, before you make the motion, I think there's one other statement that I would feel comfortable in adding. And that is by SHPO, placing the term generally, generally more acceptable or generally not appropriate. Just using the term generally leaves us with local discretionary authority as to how we handle it in the most appropriate manner. Would you disagree with that?
I agree with you, Rick.
I don't
I'm being
disagree
fine.
with the, oh, go ahead, Reg.
You're fine, Kurt. I'll wait. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't disagree with the statement. I think, I don't know that it needs to be written. I'm happy to have it there.
No,
Like,
that-
we're still the voting body, so we always have discretionary
No,
authority.
Yeah.
God, you can't do that.
Here's what I don't want to happen. SHPO states in one response that they are adamant against vinyl siding, but then yet in a follow-up response gives us a generally not acceptable. Well, I think that they've softened their position in our allowing our discretion to be applied. That's
Yes.
why I think it's important to have it.
Okay, I'm happy with it. So I will make a motion for a negative declaration on the seeker.
A
I'll
second.
second that motion.
Okay, so after that's Kurt, and then was that Loretta or was that Reg?
Reg.
Why don't you make it unanimously seconded?
I think unanimously seconded.
I think we're making a statement that really deserves to be memorialized here.
Okay. So roll call, Loretta Reesma,
Yes.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Reg Carter,
Yes.
Kurt Burbidge.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So I will now return to my original motion. Do you need a second, Shalice, to catch up?
Let me save that real quick. I can take care of the rest later. Go ahead.
So I'll now return to my original motion. I make a motion to deny approval of this project, and I'll need to refresh on deny approval of the application.
2021-13.
Do we typically introduce motions and negative motions, or should it be positive?
You can
And the
introduce
vote
any motion.
determines the outcome.
Yeah, you can introduce any motion. at this
Can?
time. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, Rick Perry,
I'm voting no, but I want to clarify my vote.
go ahead.
I think this is a vote of the preservation of a building rather than promote the continued deterioration caused by inappropriate building material that is not weatherproof, that will only promote the deterioration as it stands. The second part of my response is this building is over 120 years old. It's been transformed a number of times. Its current use really does not resemble the original intent of the building. To ask this applicant to revert back to a character of a building that has not for, I would say, an estimated 50 years, not represented its original intended use. For that, I say no.
Reg Carter, the motion is to reject the application.
Yes.
Kurt Gurvich,
Yes.
Loretta Waitzma,
No, and I agree with what Rick said.
the motion fails.
So I'll make a second motion.
Okay.
Second motion is to approve the application. Can I get the numbers there, Shalice?
2021-13,
On the following conditions: that vinyl siding be applied only to the most deteriorated portions of the building as determined by the building inspector, and that wood clapboard be applied to the remaining portions of the building, and that all significant architectural features such as window fascia and pillars and trim and dental work, et cetera, are preserved in wood.
hang on
Kurt,
one
can I-
second, sorry.
Kurt, can I ask you to, at minimum, consider a slight modification to that?
Yeah.
That rather isolated areas within an entire site of a building that we consider allowing, like is it Wells Street? That we allow the full siding of the entire side of the building where the deterioration is taking place. Meaning Wells and Court Street, that's where the deterioration of the building is.
Yeah. I get the intent to avoid the piecemeal look, and I fully support that.
Guys, sorry, there should be a second before there's discussion.
Okay.
But then you can have that exact discussion, Rick.
Okay,
Sorry.
well, I've asked him to modify
He can modify it after the discussion,
after.
Yeah.
Okay.
but he would need a renewal of the second to confirm that the second,
I'm sorry.
no seconds. Yeah, it's weird. I'm sorry.
Just a process check. Where are we in the process at this point?
Kurt has made a motion, and Kurt, I'm going to read this back because I'm not sure I captured it correctly. So please correct me if I'm wrong. Kurt has made a motion to approve 2021-13 with a condition that of the vinyl application only being applied to the areas that see the most deterioration as determined by the building inspector, and that wood clapboard be applied in all other locations, and that all architectural features and detailing be preserved. Is that correct, Kurt?
Yes, that is correct.
Sorry, I was trying to write as fast as I could.
Yeah, of course. No, I appreciate it. Yep.
I feel like your face says you don't agree.
I'm trying to figure out how to get more detail on architectural features be preserved. I
Okay.
don't know the language for that, for adding detail to that.
Be preserved without damage, and any damage will be restored to its original.
I'm thinking more something like the trim, the dental work,
Architectural features and
other
detailing,
unique architectural
including
features be preserved in wood. And
trim, dentals, and what? I'm sorry. Fascia.
yeah, the applicant may be able to give us the language here we're looking for.
Cornices,
Fascia.
dental work, finials.
Finials.
Crown
Crown molding.
And specific window trim.
I've got trim.
Windows.
Yeah, I've got a question. Does this modification require that vinyl go in some places and then the wood gets replaced everywhere else?
That is, I believe, the motion.
Loretta, as long as we're continuing the discussion.
Yeah, I guess we're doing that now.
What I've asked Kurt is to apply within his motion,
Yeah.
the ability to do an entire side. But we can talk about that after it gets a second.
Guys, I would either suggest you second it, or Kurt, maybe you withdraw the motion and you guys have further discussion and then introduce a new motion.
Why don't we just second it, then we can continue the discussion and modify.
Is there a second?
We have a second to Kurt's motion.
I believe the motion dies if there's no second.
Okay,
Problem.
Okay, discussion.
there we go. Okay. Kurt, did you want to make the modification now to the motion?
Sure, I will make a motion that we approve the application of, what is it, Shalice?
Approve 2021-13.
With the following conditions: that vinyl siding only be applied. Sorry, I'm gonna withdraw the motion. I don't know how to make it. And I don't know that I'm the one to make it.
Does anyone else?
Kurt, you're suggesting that you're open to the possibility of a hybrid solution that would include vinyl as well as wood clapboard. And in the event the applicant would want to come back with such solution, that might be the middle ground that assures, I think, what we're all looking for, the economic consideration as well as the historic considerations. Is that a fair statement?
No, because what truly my interest here, now that it looks like rejecting the full application is not possible, my interest is in outlining a detailed list of what is preserved so that in the future we can refer to that list on other properties. Because my concern now, I believe this application should be rejected. I believe we don't have a justification for overturning Department of Interior, the State Historic Preservation Association, our own city ordinance, and public comment. The application should be rejected. However, if I'm in the minority, I want strict guidance by which we are able to reject or approve future applications in this historic district to replace wood with vinyl, because as we know, there may be many. And I don't want to have this discussion. They shouldn't over and over. They should not all have to go through 3 visits to the planning board over a period of 6 months.
Is the 2-2 vote acceptance? I'm just catching
No.
up. That's why I asked earlier for, a process check before we went into another motion. My understanding at this point is the project has been rejected.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
First motion was to reject,
And it failed. So
fails.
So there's no active, there's no,
There's no motion as of yet.
let me make another motion that maybe everybody will absolutely hate, which is fine, right? I'm just trying to move us ahead here. I make a motion to table this item. I don't think we need any more presentation about it, but we need a 5th member of our board to break a tie. That a 4-member board right now is not going to break a tie.
That is not unreasonable, Kurt.
so is that a
It's
motion
very
in?
reasonable.
I'm sorry, Rick, I couldn't hear you again.
I think what Kurt just said is reasonable. I don't know that it's acceptable by the applicant, but I think as a board, I don't see consensus myself. Sorry, Kurt, we disagree on that, but
No, I totally agree.
I think that we're at an impasse and, it's not going to get a rejection or an approval.
Rick, is that
We're
you,
stalemated.
is that a second of his motion to table then? Are you seconding his?
I'm not sure he officially made that or just threw it out as a point of discussion.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought I heard it.
Kurt,
say-
was that a point of discussion? You want to see how everybody feels about it?
Well, I don't really like straw votes. And so if you want me to make it as a motion and then we can talk about it, that's fine. I agree with you, Rick. We don't have a consensus and I'm happy to lose I'm happy to lose. It's democracy, but we're not getting anywhere. And I understand the position that this puts the applicant in. I don't think the applicant ever should have been put in a position to revisit 3 times and over 6 months. I think the criteria were clear the first time the applicant came, but we didn't agree then. We don't agree now. Anyway, I will make a motion to table this.
Am I allowed to?
I think
Second?
so. I think,
I know Jim doesn't.
I know he doesn't, but I don't think that's like a
Okay.
requirement.
Well, if I'm allowed to second, I'd gladly second that motion.
Kurt or Rick, could you just clarify for me what that means? So Jim's project has been rejected, so that's done, correct?
No,
No,
No.
no.
there is
There's
no,
no decision because any decision requires 3 votes. We're at a 2-2.
Right,
for the-
okay,
For the only
okay.
vote.
it is not an automatic rejection if there's not an approval. It's literally just no decision and it's kind of in limbo.
Got it.
One thing I
Okay.
do want to add, as you guys are
what I
considering
thought.
tabling it, the public hearing has closed. The application has been presented. You have a complete application. So at this point, we are kicking off the 62-day decision timeline.
Yep.
So if you guys are unable to meet in a decision at your next
62
meeting
days.
within 62 days, it does turn into an automatic approval at that
That's
point.
correct.
Okay.
Okay? Jim, are you clear on that?
Hell no. I'm not clear on any of this.
No, what Shalice is
I
saying.
totally understand Kurt's
Yeah.
position, if I may.
Please.
I understand the precedent, Kurt. I totally understand that. I understand Rick's point that everything was done up to this point with permission. I understand, not sure I understand Reg's position. And Loretta seems to have an appreciation for older buildings based that you did see the significance in yours. Kurt, to address yours, to have another 6 months to come back. I'd like to go warm weather sometime. And if this is gonna die in limbo in 6 months or in 62 days,
No, it gets automatic approval
You
in
would get
62 days.
automatically approved.
if you don't approve, if you don't meet,
If they
Yeah.
don't make a decision within 62 days, you get an automatic approval.
now I won't be here to do that. Be here.
If
I'm
if
here.
the clock
I'm not-
runs
I'm
out,
not
you
the
don't have to
lady
be
from
present.
wherever she was at the jail. I'm here. And I want to be present for the next one, but I don't want to be zoomed in. I want to be here.
I don't know that he gets to present again because the public hearing is closed.
Yeah,
So I don't need to be here.
you don't need to be here. We could take the vote.
So it's a grand jury vote.
Yeah,
My input's so noted.
that's why we
Will that be
strive
with
to
the
have a
new
complete record.
persons in place as members?
Jim Abdello should be back for next month's meeting.
Okay, for next month, will you have new members? Because you do have a vacancy,
No, we'll have 5.
but in the event that you do,
In the event somebody's absent, we have what I would consider a complete record that that individual could review, get acquainted with, to the point that they have the
To this
ability
extent?
to vote. To the best extent possible.
everyone is comfortable with that? I'm hungry.
My kids just came home and I've yet to say hi. I haven't seen them in months.
I haven't seen you in quite a while, Loretta.
No,
So-
they just drove in from Michigan. I want to go say hi.
Do you want a roll call, Rick? That-
Yeah, we have a motion by Kurt.
I think it needs to be seconded. Yeah.
I second it. Do we have any further discussion?
On table.
Okay. The roll call vote is to table the application. Keep it on the agenda for next month. And if this is where an aspect of the law kicks in that being that the public comment session is over and it's strictly the vote of the board, if we don't arrive at a decision, a 3 affirmative vote decision, the application is automatically approved.
Mhm.
So that's the vote that we're at.
So roll call, Reg Carter,
Yes,
Kurt Gervich,
Yes.
Loretta Rietsma,
Yes,
Rick Perry.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Loretta, have a good time.
thank you.
You betcha.
Rick-
Thanks for that, Spiker.
Thank you, Jim. I'm sorry.
Go and
that-
enjoy the holidays, bud.
Thank you for coming back and thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Ethan, I won't remember if you made your announcement in front of everybody, or would you like to share?
Yeah, I
like
can,
an hours ago?
yeah, I can be brief. This will be my last meeting with the planning board, so I will not be able to participate in the conclusion of this application, but I look forward to seeing the work that this board does. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, I'm personally gratified that everybody has their own opinion. Every member of this board takes their position seriously. You give great thought and detail. We just all come from different places, and to get to the same place can be challenging, but it's the effort that we put in the journey that makes it rewarding for everyone. So thank everyone for their input, and Shalice for and Ethan for your administrative guidance and help.
Jim, you'll hear from
Bye,
me.
Jim.
Good night.
So do we have anything else, any open business, any new business that
just to recap what was discussed in the pre-meeting, we're still waiting legal response on the bylaws. Comp plan is still just in limbo because of holidays and all the people that are working on it just having uncoordinated schedules at the moment. I think that's it. Planning board members, we've had 6 applicants, only 5 lived in the city. So we've had some interest. Got some candidates to look at. And Ethan, it's phenomenal.
About that. Do you have to be a resident or a taxpayer?
Resident.
Okay. I was curious about that because I know there are a lot of people that are not residents that pay significant taxes in the city.
Yeah.
And I was curious whether or not they had standing to be on a board, so I guess not this board.
No.
Does anyone have anything else they want to bring up or discuss?
I appreciate the conversation and the thought and deliberation on this one. And Happy New Year, everybody. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second
I'll
it.
second that.
Why do it?
I'm gonna assume that's unanimous. Okay.
Yes.
All in favor?
Unanimous consent. Thank you, everyone. Have a happy new year.
Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.
Good luck,
everybody.
Ethan.
See you, everyone.
Ethan, best of luck.
Ethan, bon chance. Have a great time.
Thank you.